Hello and welcome to Kajabi in 5 minutes. Last episode, I didn't get to talk about the automations area in the offers. And if you're just tuning in now, I'm doing a series on offers. This is the third episode, I think. And so if you haven't listened to the past few, you may want to go back and check those out. We're building on each things and just moving through the offers, basically step by step. So the automations area in the offer is a super important area because the checkout page is an action that someone's taking on your site, taking with your stuff. Someone is taking action with your content. And so this is a trigger point for automations. And in the last episode, I started talking a little bit about the difference between a marketing email and a transactional email. And sometimes people aren't subscribed to your stuff, depending on how your checkout page is set up. And I'll get to that hopefully this episode. People may not subscribe even though they're purchasing. You can control that a little bit, and I'll get to that in a minute. But anyways, long story short, they might not be subscribed. It just depends. And so if you've got all of your post-purchase communications set up in an email sequence, which is a really convenient way of doing it, there is a chance that they might not get those emails because of that. And so that's just important to know and understand. The default email is a transactional email, and they will always get that. But there's another email that they will get that's a transactional email, and that's through the automations, your other email option. It is the send an email option under the then drop down of your automation. So if you put an email in the send an email automation, then that is considered a transactional email and not a marketing email, which is very different from the email sequences, which are considered marketing emails. And that's just important to know and understand as you're setting up your offer and really just building out the communications that you are hoping to have with your customers. The other automations, there's a lot that you can do. I'm not going to go into too much details about them, but I'm going to say if anyone's ever taking action on your site, put a tag to that action. So again, fulfilling the checkout page is an action that they're taking. So set up an automation so that when that offer is purchased, then do a tag. That's just really good best practices. Then when you're looking on your contacts, when you see somebody on your list, you'll see the tag that says, and you'll just know really easily they made that purchase. So that is a best practice that I like to tell people. Something that you need to pay attention to in your automations is not under the then category, but the when. And under the when, by default, is offer is purchased. But there's other options there. There is offer is granted, and then there's some other ones that have to do with payments, like a subscription is canceled or maybe failed. I don't remember the other two right now. But the big one to note is when an offer is granted. And so granting an offer basically means that an offer is being given to somebody, so they don't have to pay for it. And the automations are different. They're separated. There's purchased automations and there's granted automations. And so if you're adding a tag, if you're sending an email, if you're subscribing to an email sequence, you're doing any of those things, you may want to consider setting those up for if an offer is granted as well as if it's purchased, basically doubling up those automations so that both they engage when an offer is granted or purchased. Now, there may never be an instance where your offer is going to be granted, and so you don't have to do that. But there could be instances where, if there could be instances where your offer is going to be granted, then I recommend doing that. So some instances where an offer may be granted is that if an offer is going to be attached to a form instead of a checkout page. So with a form, again, action is being taken. They are putting their name and email and whatever other information you're collecting. That's action. And so it can trigger automations And one of the triggers is granting an offer. So that would be one instance. Another instance could simply be you're collecting payment outside of Kajabi. And so through other automations and triggers, you want to set up an offer to be granted to that person. You aren't going to make them purchase it again. You aren't going to make them check out the form again. Granting is all something that happens in the background. They don't see it. They don't see the offer. They don't see the checkout page. And so if someone's giving you payment outside of Kajabi, you're going to be granting the offer to them. So your automations are going to be set up as when offer is granted, not when offer is purchased. Another instance where you may be granting offers is you may have a program that involves a few different offers, and they could be purchasing one offer on a checkout page. And to them, it's all just one experience. I'm going to the checkout page, I'm buying this, but on the back end, you might have it set up with a few different offers. And for example, I've worked with some coaches who have a program that involves maybe a 6-week or a 6-month course, so to speak. And during that 6 months, then there is a monthly coaching to go along with the course content. And if you buy the program, you get the content for life, but you only get the live coaching and interactions for 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever. And then if you want, you can renew that and buy some more of it. Well, if you set a course up to hold all of the live rooms for coaching and the recordings, or if you're using a community for that, and you have your course material in a separate course, they get the one forever and they only get the other one for a limited amount of time. Well, then you can use multiple offers. You can have your main front-end user-facing offer with a checkout page that has your course in it. You can have your product in it set to access never expire. And then you can have another offer, something that the clients will never see, that has the other product where all of your recordings are being held. And, they'll never see this. They don't know it exists, but on the back end, it's there. And on the main offer, the checkout page that people are purchasing through, there's an automation that grants the other offer. And the reason that it's separated is because this other offer has a limited access to it. And, so when someone gets granted that through the automation, they get it for that limited access period, but they get the one they bought forever. And that's just another way that you can use granting offers. So that is the automations area. There's a lot that you can do there. And you can do things that are for you, reminders to you, and not automations for the client. So you can send an email to yourself or your team saying, hey, this person made a purchase, start this workflow. Or when a subscription payment fails or is canceled, you can untag them, or you can tag them something else saying that they're an alumni or that they are a dropout, or you can say that you can subscribe them to a different email sequence like, hey, I noticed you left this. Maybe you're interested in this. And so there's a lot of different things that you can do with the automations. If you're on the basic or the Kickstarter plan in Kajabi, you just get access to the basic automations. But if you're in the growth or the pro plan, you get the advanced automations, which introduces conditional logic, which is basically an if statement. So it's the regular screen for your automations. You've got the when, you've got the then, but then you also get an if. And so basically it's like this stuff will happen if they have this tag, or if they've filled this form out, or if they've also purchased this, or if, something else. And so that is what the advanced automations are, in case you've ever wondered about that. So that's what I've got to say about the automations area in Kajabi. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about this thing that I've brought up with these past couple, where I've said that sometimes people won't subscribe and won't be subscribed even though they've purchased. And whether they did it on purposely or not, it's good to know where that's taken care of and how it's handled and what your options are. And I'll get into that in the next episode. So I will see you then.